Welcome to another episode of Positivity. I'm very excited to be here today. Originally, when I started the podcast, we did a very like holistic approach, therapeutic approach, because that was the journey that I was going through at that time. I was very into therapy. I had a coach at that time, and I felt like I needed somebody to carry me through the day. I was processing a lot. But Hashem, as I went on and I learned these tools, I felt like I was able to go away from the therapy and stop taking the treatment of therapy. But I'm still a huge fan, and I have these specific friends that I know that I can call and almost get like a therapy session with them because they're good listeners. So I'm very excited to bring back again a therapist on the show. We didn't have many therapists. I think the last one we had maybe was in Yiddish or maybe yes English, but was Bosner from Muncie. But until then, we haven't done in a while a therapist on the show, and I'm happy to sit over here with Avrohom Leffler, who is very vocal, and you're an activist. You're on LinkedIn. A lot of people know you. You worked with different projects in mental health, and I want to start with the question of what is the importance, in your opinion, of therapy for those that don't understand, for those who are starting literally from the beginning. They're listening to this first time, they've never done therapy, they've thought about it, maybe yes, maybe no. Give us a little bit of an introduction into what is therapy.
Wow, a great first question. First of
Thank you.
all, thanks so much for having me.
A
It's a
pleasure.
pleasure to be here. It's nice to meet in person. Really appreciate it. I think you call this the Positivity
Yep,
Podcast,
yep.
right?
And I call it the People's
And the
Podcast.
People's
That's
Pod.
my new thing because that's really
Oh,
what it
oh,
is. So, like, if I would need to open a new podcast, I would call it the People's Podcast. But that's
okay.
that's the slogan:
I,
Positivity Podcast by the people, the People's Podcast.
I love anything with people and positive. Just the name alone, I'm in. You know what I mean? So
Thank
that's
you.
yeah. Okay. So what is therapy is a very broad question, and if you ask 100 Jews and 100 therapists, you're going to get 1,000 different answers, right?
Okay.
It's for real. Um, Everyone's probably like checking AI right now, like, hey, what's therapy? It's not. But yeah, the importance of therapy. What is therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether we like it or not, it's a huge part of life right now. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
Baruch Hashem, I think it's become much more something people are more open about, which
Yeah.
is tremendous, right?
Okay.
So and again, if one person listens to this and they feel better about their process, or as a result they go to therapy, to me it's all worth it, right? It's
Okay.
tremendous. So therapy is something which number one is very very common, right? It's becoming more and more common. Baruch Hashem, there's a lot more options out there, and
Right.
there's something for everyone, right? There's private therapists, there's clinics, there's really is something for everybody, and therapy. Not only is it nothing to be ashamed about, but to me, any client who comes to me, I understand it's a little more private. You don't have to yell it at the rooftop, but I always look at it like it's a schus that you're here. It's such an opportunity, and I tell that to adults and kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I frame it. It's an opportunity. Even if a kid comes to me, I see kids through adults. If a
Mm-hmm.
kid comes to me, I say, turn to your parents and thank them, right? Like you're
Yeah.
here for it's a tremendous opportunity, right? And the reason is because we could get into why and is the world tougher, or the reasons why people struggle with things, more expectations, whatever it is. There's so many reasons, but the reality is, but that is true. So for people, who need it, does everyone have to go? Do most people have to go? The bottom line is, therapy is a place where people could come, and it's a non-judgmental setting and zone where you speak with someone, you get attention, you get validation,
Mm-hmm.
you get skills, you get a mahalach hachayim. You learn what to do in a multitude of situations, emotions, relationships, self-esteem, process trauma, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a place when you go with the right therapist. That is has to be a good fit, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really, really could be life changing.
Right. So, do you find that people go to therapy and they're proactive or reactive? For most people, are they coming to you when they already have the problem, or are they going to you when they say, before I reach any problems, I want to be able to process my relationship, my emotions, my feelings, my life, and so on?
So most people probably come because it's reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Most people come because they're already dealing with something, or someone sent them to therapy, right?
Okay.
And they're struggling, anxiety, this, that. So the truth of the matter is, and I don't know if you're alluding to this or not, but yeah, halavai people would come and not wait until it's
Yep.
too late. Or and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, why 5 years ago would have been like the better time to come, you know.
Right.
And again, any time is better. No, it's always a good time, right? There's no such thing as it's too late, right? You know, we're happy to have you, but yeah, sometimes it's like it's easier to help someone, and it's better to deal with it, you know, before it gets out of control, before it's chaotic,
Right.
right? Let's deal with it. Let's build you up. Let's help you to be able to cope ahead and not struggle mightily, right? You know, so
Right.
absolutely, and it is, and it has been a little bit more of a movement. There's been a little bit more of a shift as far as like more proactive stuff.
Right.
Let's say, you know, people get married, you know, premarital stuff like that. It used to be, it was more controversial.
Yeah.
Premarital, no, you're going to cause issues and problems. Now there is a little bit more of a movement as far as, you know, hey, let's meet with someone. Let's discuss what is an emotion, what is a relationship, right?
Yeah.
What is connection, you
Right.
know?
It's funny because, in my opinion, and maybe I'm just reflecting off myself, I'm seeing that in the future, I think people would need less therapy versus a lot of people saying in the future we're going to need more therapy because there's more technology and whatever. But I see it as a chance that we're going to need less therapy because people are getting used to acknowledging feelings, asking the right questions, knowing how to be open with a friend, and knowing when to actually go for help. So, because it's not such a stigma, there's a big chance that we'll have these tools more naturally, more effortlessly than in the past. It's just my own little thing that I was thinking now as you're saying it, because you're saying how we're so open to it. I think it's true. A few years ago, I didn't know about therapy. When I started therapy, I felt like it was a big stigma. Today's days, if I do feel I need therapy, I know exactly where to go. So, things are shifting, right?
I think things are definitely shifting.
Yeah,
I halavai. I hope we get there, right?
yeah,
That it's less. Um, I'll be the first one. I'll take down the shingle. We'll do something else, you know. But yeah, if someone's thinking about investing in therapy, I wouldn't say no quite yet. You know,
hmm It
it's
is a
still,
rising thing now.
it's first of all, the field is thriving. There's more therapists than ever, right? So
Okay.
you know, and you know, again, you want to go to a good one, but yeah, for right now, I think it's a slow crawl. In other
hmm
words, yeah, there's a little bit more awareness, you know, which is awesome. There's a little more of like, you know, decreasing the stigma, which I personally I try to do as much as possible. Try to be an ambassador of therapy. You know, normalize it. You know, someone comes in, you know, it's great, it's geschmack, we have a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting here. You know,
It feels great to be
it
talking to
feels
somebody.
terrific. It really does.
Right.
And you don't have to be your whole life, right? That's the point, right? It's, you
100%.
know, just come, do what you have to
So,
do.
yeah. So, when and why did you become a therapist personally?
It's funny because that was a first day of graduate school, right? They
hmm
asked everyone to get up and to answer that question, right?
Okay.
Why did you do? So of course most people put on acts and so on, and it was actually a very varied and diverse group of people. I'm not going to name names right now, you know, what people answered, but it would be interesting. The real truth is you know the reason why anyone hopefully goes into the field is prerequisites are that you enjoy working with people, right? Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about, right?
Okay.
You have to enjoy working with people, enjoy helping people. So I felt like I had that, and there was also the practical. At the time that I went in, it was a good time for me. It was a good time for transition. I can't say there was any like you know life awakening, moving, shifting movements, and you know it
Yeah.
was just like it was practical. The program opened up. A lot of guys were doing it. I felt like it made sense for me, but it's definitely something which it was the best thing I ever did. I grew into it tremendously every year, more by more and more. I'm more passionate about it now than I was when I started 15 years ago.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
I love it every day. I love it.
How many years of school did it involve?
So it was 2 years of full-time graduate school.
Okay.
You know, pretty intense. You know, writing a lot of
Wow.
papers. You know, traveling into downtown Brooklyn, internships, and it takes time to build up. There's no way around it. It is a bit of a hot topic now. Like as far as is the field getting oversaturated and is it hard and could you make a parnasa from it? All very legitimate questions. Um, but it's a very meaningful career.
hmm
It's a tremendously meaningful career, and I still think that holds true. And if anybody reaches out to me, which a lot of people do, like, you know, should I become it? Should I not? You know, if you enjoy working with people, if you're passionate about it, if you're not looking to get rich, you know, there's is nothing like it.
Wow.
It's such a meaningful career. It really,
Right.
really is. I'm sorry. Did I end? There was a question there somewhere. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No.
What was the
No. It's
question?
it's very
Did I
it's
get it?
very interesting. What do you think as a therapist? What is, or not think, what's your specialty? What would you say is your specialty? Is it focusing on anxiety, relationships, personal trauma, um, IDF? There's so many different
There's
routes
just
in
so much,
therapy.
and more every day, right? And more
Yeah,
every day, right?
yeah.
So I specialize in people,
Okay.
but yeah, everyone sort of does need, whether you need a niche, whether just what to answer people or not. So I happens to be I do work with kids through adults. I work with anxiety, phobias, OCD, panic attacks.
Mm,
I do a lot of parenting. Love helping parents. So a lot of parenting. Anything to do with emotions, relationships, mood, emotion regulation, anything to do with that. So I do, and I feel
right.
pretty confident doing. And my approach, versus I could just list all my trainings. My approach is, sort of my tagline, which my LinkedIn people will know, is compassionate and evidence-based therapy, which I think
Hmm.
is unique, and I think it's important. In
Hmm.
other words, compassionate, because otherwise, what are we talking about, right? It's important, and you can't take it for granted. And then evidence-based as far as like, we do things that we know works and we know it helps. So I'm goal-oriented. In other words, what are we doing? How are you doing, right? I do frequent check-ins with my clients, but compassionate. So I'm very, very friendly, interpersonal, and so on and so forth. We have a good time, but at
Hmm.
the same time, we have goals.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's a nice. I find it's a nice potent combination, and it works for me.
yeah.
You know.
No, it's amazing. Um, I'm thinking because anxiety personally has been something that I personally struggled with for a while. Um, and I think the root cause to that is not feeling safe in your environment growing up. And it's nobody's fault necessarily because kids and teens will interpret their version of the world and what it is. So they can have the best parents or best friends, but still, if they had something that they didn't process, it still can stay there as a strong emotion. Um, I'm not sure. I don't know if therapy gave me necessarily the tools or rather the support that it's okay, that it's like as if I always felt like, you know, if the worst thing happens, which is, I don't know, maybe ending up in a mental institution, God forbid, like, then at least somebody knows my story. But my point is that not going that deep and far, but I knew that I have a support. Somebody's there to at least help me with my mental health. And to me, that was a lot. Obviously, I learned also tools, but at the end of the day, it was a phase. And it was me coming to certain realizations that therapy helped me with. So I'm curious, in your opinion, do you think that that's what therapy is? Is it a support or is it giving people tools? Is it a long term or is
Sure.
it just different for everybody?
So yeah, for sure.
Loaded
Again,
question.
so it's a very loaded question, right? But we'll answer is to the best of our ability. We'll answer honestly, right?
Yeah.
So again, I'll start off saying, one of my most commonly lines I say is it's all on the dialectic,
Okay.
right? What does that
Which
mean,
means,
right? In English, not Chinese. So everything in dialectic means that there's truth to everything. And I
okay.
I think it's such an important thing in life in general. We can learn from anything, and there's truth to anything, and there's no one size fits all, right? So I'm huge into that in life in general. There's no all or nothing. There's no this is the one approach, that's the one approach, because people are different, right? People are complex, right?
Hmm.
Every therapist is so different, right? So that's the first thing is that there's definitely no one size fits all. So important. But I think, again, as far as I know, research has always shown that one, if not the most important thing in therapy, is the relationship, right? At the end of the day, right?
Okay.
So I think both are so important. If you have a therapist, they can know thousands of skills, right? They could have 82 letters after their names, right?
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, what's the feel in the room, right?
Hmm.
Like you said, does it feel safe, right? If you walk into a room, it's a felt sense,
Hmm.
right? Okay, I know I'm wanted here. I know it's safe, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then first of all, that's huge, right? For some people, it might be 90%. For some people, it might be 30, 40%, but
Yeah.
the connection is huge.
Yeah.
Feeling safe is tremendous. Having connection, right,
Yeah.
is very, very important. And for other people, even if they're going to do learning or skills, right, And could that take place if they don't feel safe, right? Or if they're
100%.
feeling get me out of here, right? So it's a huge prerequisite for therapy is that felt sense of feeling safe.
Right.
So important.
Right.
You know,
I think my next question would be is like, how do I know now if I need therapy or not? Like, there's a chance that,
the
um,
feedback's already coming in.
yeah,
This is a
yeah,
second episode.
yeah. There's a chance that it's actually my mother. So
Maybe
let
you
me
should
pick
take
up.
it then. The mother's.
Yeah, what's doing? Oh, okay, perfect. All right, I'm gonna text my wife. Okay, bye. Bye.
Yeah,
Let
mother,
me
you
just text
always
them. My
answer.
Yeah, people are amazed when I don't even cut it out.
I think that adds to it. I think
Yeah,
the naturalness, the
yeah,
genuine aspect of it.
yeah.
Having said that, I don't know if they have to hear the conversation, depending what it is. That might have to be cut out.
Yeah.
Does this run live the whole thing? Do you do editing, or every bit
So
is?
no, I try not to do editing because I'm bringing people into the conversation, and um, if my conversation got interrupted, and then they're along with me for the ride. Anyway,
Love it.
sorry. Yeah. Um, the my next question is, how do I know if I need therapy right now? Meaning, I feel good. I feel relatively happy. I have my anxious moments. I have my even depressive moments, which I happen to have learned in the book of The Power of Letting Go, um, which helped me a lot because it was explaining the cycle of depression, which is that you go into your ego mind, ego self, you then lose yourself, and you feel as if you got this, and then at a certain point you can't hold up with that identity and you get depressed. And then once you're depressed, you're obviously more connected to yourself, so you heal, you take care of yourself, and then you're strong again. But then you go back into an ego mind and you say, no, it's fine, I'm good. And you start being reckless, you stop exercising, you go to sleep late, you eat unhealthy foods, and the cycle continues. And then you get depressed, and then you heal, and then you're good. So it's really a four-step process. Now, in the book, they were explaining how this cycle can go for years, can go for months, weeks, days, hours, or even minutes. Meaning to say that, and I saw that in the beginning when I got depressed for the first time, it took 7 or 8 months, or even a year almost till I got out. And
Wow.
then every story afterwards lasted less. And then today I would have, even last week, I felt really depressed. But I also knew that I had lack of sleep. I was a little bit stressed. I had a lot of new business opportunities within my companies. So that the whole depression kind of lasted for 2 hours only. And I was able to see past it. So I've noticed that if you know the cycle of your life in general, whatever that is, then it's a lot easier to go through it. Um, Back to my question is, how does a person know if I don't know, maybe I do need right now help, maybe
Hmm.
I'm on the brinks of a collapse, maybe on a mental collapse. People see mental breakdown as the worst word ever. There's nothing wrong with a mental breakdown. Everything that happens in our life, every kid has mental breakdowns. When they switch from eating like this to eating like this, it's a mental breakdown.
There's life
The mental
stressors. There's
Yeah, the
everything.
mental breaks down. So how does a person know? Maybe I'm now before a mental breakdown. Maybe I can prevent it by starting therapy, and I can tell a therapist, hey, I'm doing perfectly fine, but I'm noticing I am a little bit more stressed than usual, maybe a little bit less present. Maybe we should start working together. Or no, or I say, no, I'm perfectly fine. Let me do this on my own. You get my
So
question?
I totally do. First of all, I'm right here, so no worries.
Yeah,
Wouldn't be the worst timing in the world.
yeah.
Um, but so it's an excellent question. It's an excellent question. So um, it's let's two pronged, right? So number one is how does someone know if they need therapy, right?
Yep.
I think that's an excellent question, which a lot of people are probably wondering about,
Yes.
right? So let's start with that. So the way I say, sort of the gather that I use, right, is a person benefits most from therapy if they have something which is affecting their functioning, right?
Yeah.
Now, if someone's doing great, they're doing great,
Right.
right? And that gets into this everybody needs therapy. I think most people would benefit from therapy, But does everyone need therapy? Not necessarily.
Right.
If you're doing good, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Don't obsess about it. You're doing great. Keep it up. Affecting functioning though is another story, right? So if someone has, let's say, anxiety, right? So anxiety is not the enemy, right? Some anxiety could be good. Healthy anxiety could be a motivating factor, right? What if it's too much? What if it's out of control?
He can't sleep at
Can't
night. He's
sleep.
afraid every minute
Can't
he's going to
function.
get sick, and he actually gets sick because
That's
if
right.
that's what he's
And
thinking.
there's so many anxieties, social anxiety, avoiding.
So now he
right?
can't go places.
Can't go.
He can't work.
Avoiding work, avoiding chasna, staying in his house, right?
Right.
You go somewhere and instead of going and being open to people,
Sitting
you're
in the
hiding,
corner,
you're
yeah.
sitting with a big safer over your head, right?
Yeah.
Not such a masvid, avoiding anxiety, right? It's sad, right? So, yeah, affecting function, that's a reason to reach out. You reach
Right.
out and let's see what's going on. That could be with any emotion, any trauma, any anxiety, depression, ADHD, you name it, right?
Yeah.
If it's affecting your functioning, then yeah, you should probably speak with someone and at least get a better idea what's going on, what's needed. Is it therapy? Is it medication?
Right.
Maybe it's a rebbe, a rav, a friend, right? Exercise, sleep, right? There's things which are we call vulnerability factors, including sleep and eating and stuff like that, right? But yeah, affecting functioning is really the name of the game.
Love it.
And then once someone's in therapy, the goal is for the person to be their own therapist, right? It's another big hop out that when does someone stop therapy, right? Ask a million therapists, you're gonna get a million. Is the goal? No, you keep them as long as possible, and no, if they want to come, they come, or they're doing well. So my personal perspective is we're looking for the person to become their own therapist, right? I think that's the most empowering thing. Where they know what to do, they feel better, they instinctively, second nature, right? They know, like you said, you have something that works for you.
Yeah.
I'm not intimately familiar with that, but a person learns thoughts, emotions, CBT, DBT, IFS, whatever it is. A person knows the inner world. They have the confidence. They have the skills. The point is, they have what works for them, right? You said it used to be months. Now it's 2 hours, right? Is that not worth $1 million? I think it is,
it's
right?
Worth 100%.
Maybe more,
Wow.
right? That's the goal.
Muchy, what do you think? I think we should really give you a mic, by the way. At least you can talk in. Huh? Sounds good, the conversation so far? It's interesting? Okay. How about Taka, we get you a mic and you'll be able to... you don't have to see your face, but it's just like a lot of the podcasts have like a commentator sitting in the side, fact-checking.
Absolutely. And he has a lot what to say. We were talking beforehand, right?
Yeah, he's a smart guy. If it's not you, it can be Shmili. It's very interesting. No, I'm enjoying this conversation because in the past when I had conversations with mental health professionals, I was in that place where I felt I was relying very much on it. And over here, I feel like I'm giving this conversation, I have to go back to that place where I was driven by anxiety and depression and fear and whatever, and think in their perspectives what is the questions that they would have or what can be helpful for those people at the time. I think also for me the tools that I learned is I'm able, like we said, to get back into the place a lot quicker. So for me, I think what brings me personally to depression is not being present. So it's like the more present I am, the happier I am. The less present I am, the more borderline depressed I am, even not knowing. Like, because you can be running for a very long time. Some people run for their whole lives. They run, they distract, then they make jokes. They're like the funny person usually. And all they're doing is they're running away from depression and anxiety.
Massive defense mechanisms, right?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Sometimes the loudest people, yeah.
Yeah.
And in one word, mindfulness. I'm
Yep.
familiar with mindfulness.
Yep.
It sounds like being present, right?
Yeah.
So mindfulness is huge.
Yeah.
Another big thing, that we know is across the board.
Yeah.
Mindfulness, being present, being more calm, being more curious,
Right.
participating in our own lives,
Right.
noticing what's coming up, right? Mindfulness has been opening a light, opening your eyes, right?
Yeah.
And living your life that way. You see,
Sure.
sometimes we don't like the view, right? So we want to close our eyes, right?
Right.
But then we crash, right? So better to be able to sometimes view that difficult emotion or
Yeah.
the person, but we see where we're going.
100%.
Right?
I mean, presence, 100%. Presence for most people that don't understand what present means, because everybody thinks, oh, I'm present. But the fact is, it's impossible to be present if you look at your phone at the end of the day and you see that you're on your phone for 10 hours out of the day. That's zero presence. And what happens is, and how I got into depression was because I didn't know myself anymore. So I was becoming super famous, and I've went through personal troubles in my life. I lost a close friend, or just different things that happened in my life. And at some point, I was like, "Who am I? I have no idea." And why should I have known myself? I was on my phone till 1 o'clock at night, still answering WhatsApps and Instagram. I had zero connection to myself.
It's a
That's
good
where I
point.
started doing daily breath work and meditation, visualization, just figuring out, who am I? What do I fall back on? What are my boundaries? Like, do I have boundaries? Do I have a connection, a relationship to myself, to Hashem? Like, what's happening in my life? I think most people, if they do an assessment like this, they'll immediately feel a lot better. Most people are not going to do this, I'm going to assume, but if they do, they will feel a lot better and they'll live a much happier, healthier life. They can be their own
100%.
therapist by being
That's right.
mindful.
That's right. And at the end of the day, it does start with the person, right?
Yes.
There's no way around that. Selfish and no, it starts with the person. Person
Right.
does have to get to know themselves,
Right.
ideally like themselves, and even love yourself in a healthy way. It's very, very important. And then
Right.
boundaries and everything, really, all that follows. All
Right.
that becomes so much easier. So much
Is
easier.
anxiety very common in our community? I mean, you deal with a lot of people here in Lakewood. Yeah, which, by the way, shout out to the Westwood studio, beautiful building. You were amazed when you walked in.
Beautiful building. Beautiful
So
building.
thank you to them. This is their studio, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Westwood, Westwood 1, Westwood 2. If you're looking for an office, feel free to reach out to them. Um, do you think a lot of people in Lakewood struggle with anxiety? And what's your take on anxiety in general? How would you explain it? How do you see it?
So I'll give you two choices, A and B. A, do you think a lot of people are anxious, or B, no? What would you guess?
I think a lot of people are anxious.
Correct. I would concur with that.
Yeah.
Anxiety, unfortunately, is very, very common.
Okay.
It's very, very, very common across the board. All ages, all spectrums. I've had clients as old as 80 who came to therapy
Wow.
for the first time, and they
Wow.
were dealing with it their whole life.
Right
And
there.
like strong anxiety, strong social anxiety, self-esteem issues, right?
Yeah.
And people who are very, very young as well,
Yeah.
can have anxiety. Anxiety is very broad, but in short, I'll even give you my best clinical definition of anxiety. Anxiety is an overreaction to a perceived threat.
Correct.
Now, that's how I view it, right?
Yeah.
Of course, it's real. It feels, of course, right? But at the end of the day, usually when we feel anxious, the bear is not chasing us, right? There's
Yeah.
no one coming out. Not an 8 foot tall guy after us, right? We feel anxious, right? So we are overreacting to what we consider a perceived threat. And that could be anything from emotions, trauma, it could be past experiences, it could be we're taking a test, right? It could be high schools, masiftas, right? Bottom. These are real things. These are real stresses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Societal expectations, right? This guy's learning better than me, right? It doesn't end, right? So I think there's a lot of expectations, and that's a biggie in Lakewood for sure. And it definitely leads to a lot of anxiety, and that could be generalized anxiety, social anxiety, OCD, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunately it's pretty common.
Wow. Yeah, personally, I think for a while I had health anxiety. So that's pretty scary. It's like
Health
every moment
anxiety
you're
as well, yeah.
afraid that you're not healthy now or you're not going to be healthy. Um, which is funny because as much as I've worked on it, but I am still I I call myself Jewish almost to validate. No, because we people are now moving away. The first thing that people ask, do they have a tzala over there? Like collectively as a nation, we somehow have, I think, crazy anxiety. I was just watching a video of the new area in Orlando. I forgot the
The
name.
thing
It's
they're
second.
building there, the new
Yeah,
community over
yeah. You
there,
know the
I don't know,
name?
like Ochi, Kochabu,
Okeechobee. That also.
Okeechobee.
Yeah, that
That's the
also.
one I saw. Too
But
many syllables for me,
there's a
but
place, Eden Gardens, about an hour away, hour and a half away from there, so they have about 50 family, whatever, and they were showing on the videos. Yeah, we have a Tsula vehicle, and there's during the week there's one Atsula member. It's like, how obsessed are we with Atsula, with our health, when we know that health emergencies happen one in a million? Like, I mean, not one in a million, but what are the chances? The chances are pretty slim that you're, especially for a young person, that you're going into a cardiac arrest. So it's like, which is the one thing that needs to be treated very quickly, or choking. So my question is, for a person like me, how do I even deal with this? Why is this still something that's on my mind, and how do I get over it?
So very
Free
brave of you
therapy.
to, very, very,
Yeah.
very brave of you. But hey, listen, that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
So health anxiety happens to be health anxiety is not poshut. I find health anxiety sometimes is actually really hard, right?
Okay.
And you could say it's just a manifestation of whatever anxiety, but health anxiety, yeah, absolutely is basically it's the same thing as any anxiety as far as healthy anxiety is basically I have something going on, right?
Yeah.
Let me deal with it, right? But people with health anxiety sometimes, they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor, until the doctor says, if you come back to me one more time, I'm going to send you to a therapist. Like, I'm already
Yeah.
by a
I've
therapist,
been there. I
right?
mean, I've
Absolutely.
been going to the doctors for once a month, and then at some point I was like, okay, nothing is wrong with you. But the
Yeah, yeah.
question is, where does health anxiety, in your opinion, even come from, and how does one take care of this?
So, so I'm not going to get into the whole, CBT for a thing, but basically in one word, it's uncertainty.
Hmm.
Health anxiety, ultimately, uncertainty is, it might happen. I might get sick, right? The symptom might be something, right?
Okay.
I might need Hatsala, right? And as a result, person engages in what we call safety behaviors, right?
Hmm.
Constant checking, excessive checking, right? Where's the closest, thing, just in case, just
Yeah.
in case. So it's actually really hard, but yeah, sure, we do all this stuff, but it's ultimately it's being okay with some uncertainty,
Hmm.
and it's hard. That
So
actually is really
how
hard.
do I get okay with some uncertainty? I mean, one of my best friends, Muchy, he's very smart and very into these things.
Hmm.
He taught me this idea of baby steps, which I love, because I remember for me about 2 years ago, I wanted to challenge myself. I think it was almost 3 years ago. So I was like Motsikis. I was like, I'm heading out to Niagara Falls, and I'm going on my own, because I'm going to finally show the entire world that I'm not afraid. I don't care. I can be alone. I don't need Atzala. I'm not afraid.
Hmm.
And I ended up going there. And as soon as I got there, that's when the panic attack, legit, the anxiety attack, I should
Hmm.
say,
Hmm.
started.
Hmm.
I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm here. Nobody's here. There's nothing here. There's no Jews. There's no whatever. And now I'm pretty screwed, because I just drove for 7 hours. So I'm not going back. So I'm sleeping over the night. I ended up driving back the next day, because I was like, okay, challenge over. I wanted to stay for 2 nights. And so I drove back the next day, and then I was just zonked, because driving 7 hours, didn't sleep much. Driving back 7 hours. By the time I got here, I was crazy. Actually the anxiety really woke up in my life, because I was like, okay, I couldn't even go to Niagara Falls
Mm.
fully. So at some point, I was afraid to drive from here to Brooklyn. But the point is, I'm saying it because I did extreme measures to
That's the
show,
key. Extreme
and
measures
and
versus
that
baby steps,
and
right?
baby steps would have been
That's right.
that drive like I did last year, still, because it's still something in my life. I drove last year to Atlantic City. I was like, okay, it's 55 minutes away. Let me go there for a night, see if I can. And it was successful. And I was very proud of myself. Last year, Paisach, I also went to Tulum, Mexico, so which was an even bigger step. It's like, okay, now you're out of the country. You're even further away. And it took me a day or two to settle in. Um, but my point is that the quick answer is baby steps. But I'm curious if you have a quick answer for somebody that has
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
anxiety and only wants to play it safe, or doesn't is afraid to travel, is afraid to go somewhere where there
Sure.
isn't more
Sure.
Yidden or Atzula. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, before with the baby steps, so, basically we use something called CBT, which is we help the person to understand their inner world, their thoughts, their emotions, the behaviors as a result of it, and to learn to estimate the thoughts. Are they accurate? Are they not? And the relationship between so we do all of that. But after all of that, there still is the baby steps. and another word, which is, if I could use a dirty word on a podcast,
Okay.
exposure therapy. Exposure therapy, not exposing yourself. Exposure therapy was
Yeah.
basically the way of saying like baby steps, right? So
Yeah.
in other words, but
So
the key is
you believe in exposure therapy.
absolutely.
So
Exposure therapy is crucial. It's just it has to be done the right way. Where I find a lot of therapists are a little too gung ho and a little too overeager. Jump in, you could do it, right? And then
yeah.
if it's a disaster, that's not therapy. That's more traumatizing than the event itself. That's a big
So
problem.
so is the challenge for me one step at a time? I mean, like literally in any area where I have
Absolutely.
anxiety, just go.
Absolutely. It's basically it's together. Let's
Yeah.
say, if you be working with a therapist, collaboratively coming together with what is reasonable for you to try, that you have a pretty good plan for success, you know what to expect, you know the anxiety that you might feel, and you have a good plan for dealing with it, right?
Right.
At least logically and rationally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but we do exposure therapy, we help the person ahead of time. In
Mm,
other words, these are the physical symptoms that you're having,
mm.
so we do things on purpose. Let's say if someone they have heavy breathing and hearts, I'll have them spin in my chair, a chair just like that, and they'll spin for 2 minutes.
To
They stand
have
up
the heavy
suddenly
breathing.
and they feel dizzy and faint. And what happens? They don't fall down, right? So the
Wow.
goal is that, and it's so important. Panic attacks,
Yep.
anxiety. It's like you see, it's the symptoms themselves aren't dangerous. It's just your reaction to the symptoms.
Correct.
It's so important. Also, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Become a little more used to it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
So that's these key, and it's helpful across the board. And then the person's willing to say, well, if I know cognitively there's no threat. I know in the history of the world nothing's happened to anybody because of a panic attack, which is true, by
Yep.
the way, right? It just feels really scary, which it does. I've
Yeah.
had panic attacks. They feel really, really scary.
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
They-
Because you
they're
don't
the
really know
worst,
what to
right?
do.
But I use this stuff and it works. It works,
Yeah.
And then we do the baby steps. It has to be the person is prepped and they feel they could do it. And then so whether it's going up for an aliyah, whether it's health anxiety, right? Whether the person has fear of traveling because they're gonna have to go to the bathroom, right? We deal with it all, right? And it's all about first we go through it, then like, okay, yeah, let me drive a block. Let me
Yeah.
drive, right? I don't know where the bathroom is, right? Or, I'll go to the dentist, right? Or, yeah, I'm not going to call the doctor for a few minutes. And then they taste success, right? And it's hard, but they do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, then you move to the next step.
Yep.
So yeah, that pace is crucial.
Yeah. Right. I love that. I also find it personally that within my anxiety, obviously, if I eat healthy and exercise and sleep well, then these symptoms are a lot less, and vice versa. And Baruch Hashem, now I'm in a place where I can already tell and see from beforehand. I know if I'm anxious, I ask myself, okay, what's going on? Where are we lacking in the physical? Because our body is the vehicle. So the more we take care of our bodies, the more we have the strength to deal with these things that come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As much as that gets overshadowed sometimes, right? Health is important, sleep is important, right?
Yeah.
What a person eats,
Yeah.
it has a tremendous impact.
Yeah, so I was thinking like for honeymoon, I was thinking because there's so many tropical places where you can go, but in a sense, I feel like I have the anxiety. It's like, where do I go? I go to some island over there, and I don't know. I need to make
No
sure I
Hatzalah
have.
for sure now.
No, Hatzalah for sure. I need to make sure I have my food. It's for me. It's not just about Hatzalah. For me, it's also about the unknown. It's like, who is going to be there? Am I going to be comfortable? What am I falling back onto? It's like, where do I go if I'm not comfortable? But yeah, I guess Hatzalah is a part of. I don't. So for me, I decided I was like, maybe I should just go to Panama. Over there, there's Jewish community. There's Hatzalah. I have everything over there, and it's still somewhere where it's
Nice
not at my
balance of everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you go at the end?
So I want to go in the winter.
Okay.
But then again, can also say that, okay, look, you're just falling for it. You're just, you know what I'm saying? You're feeding into it. Now you're showing yourself that.
It's such a good, and I get asked that all the time, right? I
Okay.
get asked that this week. I don't want to give away too much information, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So again, you got to be normal, right? What's called normal, right? Had clients this week asked me, could I have water, right? I don't want to give in to the anxiety, right? But I want water. Yeah, so have water. You know what I mean? It's a normal thing to have some water, right? You'll build up and you'll get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we don't want to get too much inside our head. You know what I mean? We don't be too theoretical,
Right.
It has to make sense. So as much as we try to eliminate what we call safety behaviors and all of that, no, I wouldn't tell you to go to some igloo in Antarctica where there's no one within 10,000 miles, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no, that's too much,
Definitely
right?
don't start with that, you're
Right,
saying.
right.
So for me,
If you go to Alaska on a guided tour and you could do that, then you
yeah.
could go a little further north.
When I went to Tulum, Mexico, which is really Mexico for itself is supposedly some people say it's dangerous. I did feel safe because I think for two reasons. Number one, I knew I'm going with close people that I knew that you know they're just there if something were to happen. I also knew that it's the season of Paisa where there even if there's no Atzula, but there is hundreds if not thousands
There's a
of meat in
presence.
there.
There's people like
Yeah,
within range.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think that people make me safe. I'm trying to sometimes I try to kind of trick my own brain and just tell it that it's okay. Like you don't have to rely on like there's 911 everywhere. So it's like maybe there is that Sula that you need. Or when it comes to food, like there's foods all over. Every grocery has eggs. Like it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I try to a little bit reason with my brain, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Absolutely, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to do.
Hmm.
It's a good thing to do, and it's some uncertainty, and
Yeah,
it's some we call it logic and all those kinds of stuff as well, right?
yeah,
And we could deal with it, and what's the worst case scenario, and
yeah.
all those kinds of things. Absolutely. So it sounds like you're handling with it well, and you
Thank
have a
you.
good balance. A good
Yeah,
balance.
yeah. You
Absolutely.
can
A
send
nice,
the invoice
a nice
after
balance. No,
the.
no, no, no. It's if you'll send me, it's a good balance. Balance is so important in life, just
Mm,
in general. To be balanced, not extremes, right? You work your way up. Will be an honest assessment. Not saying you. I'm saying you like the
yeah.
everyone, us, me, you, the viewer. Right? Where you holding, right? Where you holding now. Do what's healthy. Do a nice middle ground. And then you'll go from there. I think that is pretty important.
Right. Um, I want to talk about relationships. Is that something that you specialize in? Do you deal with both sides of the relationship or just one individual and seeing their interactions to relationships? If we can talk about that for a
Sure,
little
absolutely. So I work a lot with relationships.
bit. Okay.
First of all, people have a relationship with themselves at the end of the day, right? So
Yep.
perhaps of the most important ones.
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty important. As well, I do some marital counseling as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I do see both. But even when I do individual, which the focus is more on the individual, usually I will invite the spouse in.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to neglect that. So yes, I do have a fair amount of experience with relationships.
What do you see is the common relationship problem? Like when somebody's coming in, okay, we're having a problem, which, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, a problem I'm guessing is basically we're just not getting along, or there's fighting, or there's disconnect. We don't feel good in this relationship. What do you see as the common reason to that?
So, with relationships, I find that it's anything from communication, and deeper than that is sometimes with couples is ultimately it's a feeling of safety. So what I do with couples a lot is something called EFT, and if you're familiar with EFT or not, so
No.
emotionally focused therapy. So the goal is it's not as much on the content, it's more on the emotions, it's more on the patterns,
Okay.
it's more on the feeling of connection, of attachment, of safety, right, and
Hmm.
things like that. So on one hand, communication is important, and we do definitely do that. It's
Yeah.
pretty important. But also, we focus on a little bit deeper is what's the cycles. We try to understand the cycles that's taking place. That takes a braveness from both the spouse as far as like get reactive. What's really going on, right?
Hmm.
Because we feel so anxious, right?
Yeah.
And what happens? We get upset, and either we get so defensive and attack, right? You always do that to me, or we withdraw,
Right.
right? And we run for it, right? I'm out of here, right?
Right.
And it makes sense because what should we do? We feel threatened, right? We feel our whole sense of self is
Yeah.
right is being attacked,
And
right?
so you're saying, and that's why many times. So you're saying that a lot of the times there's something deeper, really, why the
Absolutely,
patterns are happening.
absolutely. And I'm not saying couples aren't ready when they get married or immature or thing. I'm not even going there. I think just with a lot of people, I think across the board, I think if there's something which is not addressed, and in the relationship, if there's not the safety to be able to bring it up, which is hard, right? Not every marriage has a thing of, hey, what I really mean is, this, and I
Yeah.
don't feel safe, and I want this from you, and let's connect, and let's have attachment. And especially if they weren't taught it as a child,
Right.
if they didn't have attachment, they might not even know themselves what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then how could they express it to their spouse, you know?
100%.
So we try to do that together,
Mm-hmm.
and then a result. What better person than a spouse sometimes if they're willing to do that work of, hey, yeah, let me prove that you are safe with me,
Wow.
right? And yeah, you could, be yourself or
Right.
express yourself.
And then, in a sense, they can hold you accountable, whether you're feeling unsafe and they can
That's
give
right.
you safety, or you're feeling uncomfortable, whatever, they can make you feel comfort. Yeah, it's
Absolutely. Who
definitely
better, right? Who
100%.
better? Not
Yeah.
me. I see you 40 minutes a week, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So better them. And then also, once you feel safe, then it's easier to communicate, right?
100%.
It's
Right.
not that complicated.
So, do you sometimes see singles also that have trauma and you're trying to help them get into a place where they can
Sure,
be ready for a
sure.
relationship?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a great goal and it's an important goal. And, try to help them to do well without the pressure of, I need to get married or I need to do this, I need to do that. Just, feel good,
Yeah.
right? Understand the relationship, understand what an emotion is, what's the anxiety,
Hmm.
what's going on, if there was any trauma, just to be able to, you know, navigate their own emotions, pretty good
Right.
sense of self, and then to be able to form a healthy relationship with another person.
Right. You mentioned that you see kids through parents. What does
Kids
that
kids
mean?
through parents. I see young kids all the way through adults from
Oh,
age 6, 7, 8 to 80.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
So kids of 6, 7, 8 can have anxiety, can have these problems.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's probably
Unfortunately,
me as a kid.
yeah.
Uh,
Probably all of us as a kid,
and is and how does working with them when their brains are not fully developed yet? I mean, no disrespect to kids, but I look down on kids sometimes because I'm like,
Okay.
you're stupid. You're young. You're not fully developed
I'm
yet.
jealous of kids. I'm like, you don't know
And
anything. You could just, right,
yeah,
have fun, live life, right?
yeah, but
For
in the same time, it's like whatever you're doing now is not what you're gonna be doing in a while from now. So, and I can't have a mature conversation with you. So, but anyway, I'm not. I don't really look down at kids. I think they're the cutest and adorable and whatever. But I'm saying, when working with them, how is it different? Because whatever you're teaching them now, they're growing still.
Yeah, they are still growing. Yeah, it's different work. I happen to love it because I love both.
Hmm.
Not everyone could. I love both. I love the diversity of it. It's such a great change of pace, right?
Hmm.
You work with adults, it's like, adults could talk sometimes, right? They're a
Yeah.
little more advanced, like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
With kids, on the other hand, like you said, kids are cute. Kids, they bring something else to the table, right? But, too much of anything, sometimes people get stagnant. So it's actually awesome as far as the change of pace is tremendous.
Mm.
Um, but to answer your question directly, I would say fakir. Sometimes people say adults are nothing but kids who happen to be taller.
Wow.
So it's interesting. You can go either way, right?
Sometimes more innocent than.
Yeah, the more innocent, and also in a way, it's like when should we really work on it, right? Is it when the person's 42
Uh-huh.
and they're already so scarred and battle weary, right? And they're
Yeah.
so developed, right? And then they're trying to like change all of that, and they're trying to change their belief systems,
Yeah.
which is very doable, but or someone who's younger, 10, 12, right? And they still are able to do that, right? And if they're able to have a good mastery of their emotions, right? And understand what a relationship is and be happy in life and thrive and do good, then it's more likely they won't even need therapy when they're 42. You know what I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean? And even if they do, which is fine, right? They have that resource to reach out because they had a positive experience, even if they are a little young, which certainly could happen, right? You
Yeah.
know, but you know what? They were, hey, that guy was nice and he listened to me. And, we had a good time. I even gained a little bit, right? And the bottom line is, it's still a non-judgmental place, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's connection. And
Right.
who doesn't love one-on-one attention, right?
Yeah.
So you know what? Let me give him a call, and that happens all the time. And
Right.
people reach out.
Wow. So you're saying from a young age they're learning that it's okay to process emotions, talk about
That's
it.
that's what I do with kids. Is I don't do pure only like play therapy that
Right.
the kid just plays for 6 years and just reflecting. Oh, I love how you threw a brick at my wall and now I have no wall. So I'm not gonna do. I'm more all the connection, but
Yeah.
also some skill based as far as like I do help them learn about emotions and behavior and relationships and
Wow.
connect and bring in the parents. So it's powerful work. It's powerful work.
Impressive. Yeah,
Hashem,
it's amazing.
Hashem.
Um
You ask good questions, I will tell you, like I
Thank you.
couldn't have prepared better questions myself, like
Oh, okay.
anything I would have wanted to cover. So,
Amazing, amazing.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
excellent
Yeah, I
questions
hope
and
we cover it
insights,
all. Did you
I
ever
love it.
have a case that you felt wasn't something, a situation that you couldn't help and you had to pass it on to somebody else, a different type of?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
It definitely happens, and not everyone could see everyone, for whatever reason. It's pretty rare. In other words, most people who reach out to me, it could be they already did their research, or they already know we're a good fit, right? Because
Yeah.
there are different styles, right? Like, some people it's only somatic, or they don't talk, they just want to focus on the body.
Yeah.
There are different styles, but so most people do, pretty well. But yeah, not everyone's a fit. So it
Hmm.
usually is, but if it's not a fit, like no one could do everything,
Right.
right? And for that reason, it could be the things are coming up for the person. It could be they don't specialize in that area. There are very specialized areas as well. Not everyone could be like top specialist in every area. And if that's the case, it's really not yashrus a professional to like keep them on if they're doing damage to the person. So you do want to have a conversation. You want to say, I really want to discuss with you, maybe another idea. And what's more is I'm going to help you find someone really good because
Wow.
that's what we want to do. We don't leave people in the lurch,
Right.
We'll find you someone,
Yeah.
you know.
I posted on Instagram that I'm going to be meeting with a therapist for the podcast. So
Uh-oh,
I
don't tell me
said,
that some murderous questions that came in or anything like that.
yeah. So I allowed people to put in questions. So we're going to check out a few of those questions. Um, People were asking, somebody asked, how do they deal with asking for money when they know the client is struggling financially?
Oh, wow. I hear that. Yeah, it's a tough one. So I don't want to sound like a businessman because I'm not. I'm a therapist, right? But again, so that is really all discussed in the beginning, right? In other words, if someone reaches out, they know how much, like if there's a rate or if it's there is a difference in private practice versus a clinic. So if someone's coming to a private practice, so then they know how much the fee is,
Hmm.
before they start, right? And sometimes people could ask for a sliding scale and pay less, and there are organizations that help to pay for therapy, so there are options out there. But if a person can't, which sure, therapy can be expensive, right? Sometimes the pressure and the stress of paying is more than they're going to gain from the therapy, right?
So then
So it's
don't
it's
go.
it's, it's not worth it. And there are good clinics. There are people who take insurance. Even my place, we're thinking about taking insurance down the line is something we're seriously considering. And it's for this reason. It's to be able, insurance could be a headache and it's a lot, but it's to be able to help the other 90% of people who,
Wow.
so we are thinking about that. But yeah, it's at the end of the day though, the reality is the reality, private practice, there is a fee involved,
Hmm.
so yeah, there is,
Yeah, and probably you want to be paying somebody because you want them to really help them and feel good with
yeah,
their help.
for sure. So it's a real issue, and we do feel like really, really bad. At the end of the day, so I personally I try to keep my rates actually, a little below everybody else.
Oh wow.
I can't undercut too much because then I get yelled at, and
Yeah, yeah,
it has to be serious. But I go up a little bit when I have to,
yeah.
and people are like, no, it's not a
Try to be
service fee. I
reasonable.
try. We do try.
Somebody's asking, what do you think about developmental trauma?
So yeah, the developmental trauma, complex trauma. So what do I think about it? I think it's horrible. It's terrible.
What does it
Someone that goes
mean?
through so trauma, which starts like at a very young age, when a person was a child and in the home, let's say there was any form of abuse,
Hmm.
or there was, let's say, it could be neglect, emotional neglect, it could be physical abuse, it could be sexual abuse.
Hmm.
So anything when a person is still developing, so to speak.
Ah,
So it's so hard because as an adult, like we could deal with some stuff. We're a
right.
little bit built up, assuming we met some of those developmental stages, right?
But
Sort of on the
younger
ball,
on, yeah,
But earlier on, it's so hard because imagine a young child, right? And they don't know anything. Like back to your point, is what does a child know, right? And then if if there's any kind of trauma or abuse or neglect, right? Whatever it is, they're getting screamed at, blamed, critical, and then what are they supposed to do, right?
yeah,
There's
they
nowhere to
feel
go, right?
powerless.
They
Yeah.
are, and they really are powerless. They for sure feel powerless for sure. So that's really what it refers to usually, and yeah, so it's
Has to be processed. What's the way to go about
so
it?
usually, yeah. Again, there's no of course one size fits all. If someone's doing happens to be doing really well in life, they were tremendously resilient and they're doing okay. I'm not going to tell you, no, you have trauma, right? But yeah, usually, yeah. Usually, if someone experienced trauma, depending, of course, how serious it was, how pervasive it was,
You should
also
take it.
how alone they were. Was there anyone
Yeah,
at any point in their life? Yeah, it's definitely a difficult parsha for sure.
yeah. Somebody says you might want to try discussing your unhealthy amount of confidence. I guess
Who,
for
you or
me,
me?
for me, for me, I think it
Okay, I
means.
thought maybe it's me. Um,
Do
uh,
you think I have an unhealthy amount of confidence?
I didn't think so, but I'm open to feedback. If that's what they think, then I'm open. Listen,
Uh,
I'm always open to feedback. You know, Positive feedback is great.
yeah,
Constructive feedback, though, is more important. For
yeah.
sure.
No, I
I'll leave
have.
that up to you. If you want what you
I know
want to.
I have people criticize me all the time, and I always say it's like I always say when you criticize, whether you're right or not, it just shows the kind of person that you are. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not. I recently posted a video of I was sitting outside eating lunch. It's a healthy lunch, and I was sitting there and I didn't have my couple on, and I wasn't focused on it. I just had, came out of the pool, and it became a whole conversation. People saying miss it, and I carry responsibility because people watch me, and I was back in the days. It used to really bother me. It used to really almost turn push me into depression. But now I was like laughing at it. I was like, wow, look at how people this is look at the way they speak. Look at the somebody was like, oh, you need a doctor. Like, look at the way people speak. And that's why to these people I give them back the most love, because obviously something is not okay. Like for this person with the confidence who's asking a nasty question, who's you know what I'm saying? Okay, I can choose to get hurt. And yeah, it bothers me. I'm a human being, but just think about them. How bad are they? They have to be doing really really bad right now to go and ask a question like this, to make an insult. I mean, they say HP, right? Hurt people hurt people.
That's what I
So
was just gonna allude to, as far as, like, I don't know. There's definitely a thought out there, is like, if something bothers you, right?
yeah,
That means that there's something else. If you're judgmental to someone else, then somewhere inside of you, that's something that you have to work on,
right,
right? Otherwise, it wouldn't bother you in the first place. I don't know what it's called,
right,
so I try to keep that in mind, because we all feel judgmental sometimes. As much as we work on it, we're human, right? Because
right,
we have judgmental thoughts. Why is this person doing that? Sure. But which are like, okay, 1 second, like, where's that coming from, right? Or, yeah, like, 1 second, I have that. You know what I mean?
right.
I just did that 10 minutes ago, right? And now right. So yeah, I think we want to be careful, as far as, like, listen, those of us who are on social media, definitely we are opening ourselves up to some of that, right?
Yeah,
For sure, if they have a little bit thicker skin, but yeah, no criticism. I think we have to be so careful, as far as critical comments and judging and so on and so forth. If someone does have feedback, I would just suggest asking, is it constructive feedback? Where is it coming from? Do you have the person's best interest in mind?
yeah,
And if yes, I would say probably private message, at least, not like public. I'll sometimes private someone message, like someone on LinkedIn, but in a way, like, hey, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but this might be helpful for you, right? They're
yeah.
usually very appreciative.
Right, right, right.
So public, sometimes I'll join the fray, if they have a
Yeah,
good time in life, but respectful. Has
right,
to be respectful. I
right.
think that's fair.
Yeah, somebody was asking about relationships, that a lot of couples are today, they're not faithful to each other. So to put it mildly, where does this come from? How, in your opinion, how should it be addressed?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, there is a lot of that going on.
Hmm.
How to address it? So, again, what's there to say? What's there to say? In other words, I
First of all,
think.
where is it coming from? Why would a person be in a relationship and then go and cheat? What's their emotional need? And also, one of the things that I learned, and I'm curious if you can address that, is that thoughts for itself is common, is human nature. It's
Hmm.
natural for a person to be in a relationship for a short time, a longer time, and think, what if I was with that other person, or
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
ifs is a normal process of
That's right.
life. Yes.
Absolutely.
But the question is, when somebody does have an impulse, where does that come from? At that point, most people would agree it is unhealthy. If you're married to someone, you got to be faithful to them. So where does that come from, and how can a person prevent it?
So yeah, it's a big question. That one already might be a little above my pay grade.
Hmm.
It's possible. Um, Well, what should I say? In other words, like, is it a question, is it right or wrong? Is it a question of, how can we, be more careful or faithful in a marriage?
Yeah,
Is it other people doing it? Do they want the feedback? Are they
right,
open to it? What led up to it? Is it, lack of confidence? Is it a lack of boundaries? Is it a lack of understanding right and wrong? Right.
right.
So I think there's a lot of factors in play with that one.
Hmm.
So I don't want to throw anybody under the bus also. What would you say? Well, what do you think are, in your opinion, seem to have some thoughts and insights about that? I don't
Thank
want to
you.
put you in the hot seat or anything, but
No,
what do you think?
I think it's passive aggressiveness within the relationship, and meaning to say that you gotta choose either or. If this is the person you choose for life, then you gotta be faithful. If you've decided that this is not your person, then go and take the appropriate steps and figure it out, right? So I think that that's really where cheating comes from. That people don't take responsibility. So, and instead of taking responsibility, they're like, okay, you know what? Let's ignore it for a minute, but let me still go and act on my impulse or act on my what I think feels like freedom and
Mm-hmm.
excitement and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But in reality, if you face reality, then I don't think that it's something um, that would happen. So I think it's important that people take responsibility for their life. Again, living presently, because if you're not present, then also yes, these things can happen. If you're not present, you then technically you one might say I wasn't even at fault because I didn't made a mistake. Yeah. So it's important to go back to presence and ask yourself really what is it that you want? Because if you think about a day after you made the mistake, there's no going back, and that's for sure not what you want for that minute of joy and whatever. So I think my solution would be to people is to live more presently and be able to take ownership of where they are in life.
I think that's well said. I think that's well said.
Thank you. Let me see if I have more questions.
Oh wow, it's so good questions. There's no fooling around over here.
Yeah.
You're a very intelligent and well-read and articulate audience
Yeah, people
for the most part.
yep. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, listen, just to be clear, if someone comes across my desk, I'm gonna, of course, non-judgmental. Like as
Yeah.
far as like, that's the thing as far as values, right? If someone's a client, then they're a client. It's not my job to pass judgment, right? And so on and so forth. But there's a concept of right wrong. You know what I mean? It's two different
Yeah.
things, right? In the world, there is right wrong. These saying achrayus, responsibility, right? So on and so forth. I think we have to be careful we're not ducking from that as well.
Yeah.
But if someone is in my office, it's a little bit of the story as far as like, at that point, my own values, take a backseat.
Yeah.
That's another story. We don't judge. We
Right.
don't judge our clients, about them, no matter what, you
Mhm.
know. But as far as right, wrong, or this or that, I mean, it's another story, right? I think it's a very important distinction. I
Yeah.
think it's a
Yeah,
very, very
that's
important
that is
distinction.
a
I don't want
challenge
to
to
sugarcoat it. I think we have to be in life. It's a very important. We're not diplomats. We don't work for the UN. There's things which are right and wrong. There's things which we all have to be better at and stronger and so on and so forth, right?
yeah,
But yeah, there is a difference in the office and out of the office.
100%.
There's a difference there.
Wow. Avram, anything specific, anything else that you would want to share with the listeners or something that you thought maybe before recording, I want to share this with people so that they know?
So I didn't think of anything beforehand. Maybe I should have.
Yeah.
So just yeah, whoever's first of all, thanks so much for having me and for this conversation, which is very
Yeah.
enjoyable and stimulating
Yeah.
and educational, as well as entertaining. Which is important. But yeah, whoever's watching this, whoever's listening to this, thanks so much for being there and for spending the time and of checking it out. It's deeply appreciated. And take care of yourself and whoever you are out there. I know it's always awkward, like you're speaking to no one, but you're speaking to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Listen, you're the best, right? Whoever you are, you're important. You're very, very choshev. You matter. So act as such. Treat yourself that way. And if you ever do need any help or speak to someone or any chizik, not only is there no shame in that, but It's extremely, extremely important, and there are people out there. Even if it can take some doing to get there, it could be a challenge to find the right person. Go
Wow.
for it. Put in the work, and you'll be happy that you did.
Wow, amazing. All right. Thank you, Avram. Thank you for being
Pleasure.
here. Really
Thanks so
appreciate it.
much.
Thank
Really, my
you.
pleasure.
And guys, thank you for hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to leave comments and we'll try to get everybody answered. Friendly reminder, if you comment on this episode, enter a $50 giveaway every single week. And if you join the membership for $9.99 a month, there's bonus footage from every episode that we recorded over the last year. So you can enjoy that and support the channel at the same time. Like the episode, it means a lot. Subscribe. We're really trying to reach 10,000 subscribers in the next few weeks. So if you can please subscribe and share it with a friend that can enjoy, it means the world to me. My personal information is in the description if you want to reach out. I'm going to put Avrom's information, contact information also in the description so you can reach out to him. And good luck. Have a good day.